Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of Mission Snapshot. As always, we are so grateful you are here because we love spending this time with you and talking about issues in the mission field. Hannah is over there and she's going to be dropping links down below throughout the episode, so please keep an eye out for that. And if you have any comments or questions, please drop them down below and she will take care of you. So today is Thursday, and that means Veronica's here in the studio, and normally we're talking about evening schools or missionaries with children. Somehow the kids are involved. But today, given that we're so close to the end of October, we wanted to kind of do something a little bit different. So what are we going to do today?
We're going to tell some scary stories. And not scary like ghosts and goblins, but scary statistics.
Oh, scary statistics.
And I know statistics can be scary for a lot of people. Right. But these are truly scary. These are numbers that are just kind of astounding.
Yes.
And not necessarily in a good way.
Right. And we wanted to make sure that our viewers hear about this and understand, because that's where decisions can be made. Yeah. So we're excited to bring it. Alarming, but we're excited.
Yes. So what we're going to talk about is our mission as Christians and as Adventists. What are we supposed to be doing? And are we actually doing it?
Right.
So the first slide just brings up a well-known verse in Matthew 24:14. And it just says that the gospel of the kingdom shall be preached to all nations, to all the world, and then the end shall come.
Right.
And it can't come until it's preached to all nations.
Right.
And I know, especially as Adventists, and I'm not sure how it's preached in other churches, but especially as Adventists, we hear all the time about how many media ministries we have, how many missionary ministries we have, and the work is being done. But the bottom line is that not all of the work is being done.
Right.
And there is still a great work to be done.
Right. So I've heard really as well that the work is almost done because Adventists have a presence in every country. So we'll address kind of what presence means.
Right.
And that some of our ministries go around the globe. And so therefore the gospel is available to everyone, and we'll address that as well. And that all we're doing right now is waiting for Jesus to finish tidying up upstairs.
Yeah,
and
he's sweeping out the holy place.
That's right.
He's almost there. Yeah.
And we're almost there. The mansions are almost done. The flowers are going on the mantles, that kind of thing. And we're just waiting for Jesus. Right. And a lot of people are wondering, why? Why are we waiting for Jesus?
Right.
And this verse here in Matthew 24:14 gives us a big window into why it hasn't come yet.
It certainly does. So, first of all, I think we should not be waiting on Jesus. When the time is right, he will be here.
Right.
And unfortunately, what that means is that he's waiting on us.
Yes.
And so there are things we need to do.
Yeah.
So we just want to bring forward, talk about that a little bit as to what can be done, what still needs done.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Done. Okay.
So, this is, I'm sure a lot of people have heard this. I heard it in high school and growing up, but there is such a thing as it's a 1040 window.
Right.
And that has to do with the longitude and latitude and this area of the world that for some reason is more unreached than any other part of the world.
Right. And
specifically now, it used to be even across the United States because it would stretch, obviously all the way around the world. Now, not so much in the United States or North America, but definitely still in Africa and Asia and in the other areas of the 1040 window, there is still a lot of area that has not been actually reached.
Right. So if you look at a picture of the 1040 window, you'll notice that the majority of what's there now are the really hard places to go.
Yes.
Where the gospel has gone are relatively easy. I'm not saying that it was a piece of cake or anything, but relatively easy compared to what's remaining to be reached. These are the really, really, really hard places. These are the places where you could get killed if you're involved at all in conversions. And so this is why this is left to the end.
Right.
Because these are the really hard places.
Yeah, it does not mean that people have not tried.
Right, no.
You know,
that's right.
or that work has just been, they've said, oh, that's too hard, let's work over here first.
Right.
Definitely, I don't want to paint that kind of picture because I feel like there are people out there serving.
Absolutely. Who have for
everywhere they can.
Yes, for centuries they have.
Right.
Right.
But it is, like you said, it's just a very hard place. There are communist countries in this 1040 window. There are places that aren't necessarily communist, but they still threaten imprisonment or possibly death or just banishment from the country, and then you can't go back at all. I mean, there's a lot of things there, and so, it's just harder to get in.
It is harder, yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about what all these pretty dots mean on this graph that you're seeing, and what exactly an unreached people group is, and what that means for us as Adventists, what we should do.
Right.
So there's a wonderful website. It's called joshuaproject.com and .net, excuse me, joshuaproject.net. And they are Christian. They're not Adventist, but they compile statistics from all over the world, from every country they can get them from.
Yeah.
And the statistics have to do with main religion in that country, the population of the country, other religions that are there, any type of Christian religion at all, and they kind of try and break it down so that you can see, is the country mainly Catholic? Is it mainly, they don't specify Catholicism, but Christian or Hindu or Buddhism or whatever religion, main religion, and they have all kinds of graphs and statistics, and it's a really fun website to peruse.
Yeah, because you can do pie charts and all sorts of fun things.
All kinds of things.
Another thing that they track here as well is whether the people groups have a Bible in their own language.
Yeah, tons of information on this website. So please check out the website if you want some more information, because we're just going to be able to delve in just a tiny bit and try and help you understand the need that's still out there. But they have so much information. So it's a great resource, and I think Hannah's going to put the website in for you guys so you can click on that.
Right.
So one thing that they have on there are prayer cards. You can actually request to get information, specifics about certain countries or regions, what their needs are, and things like that. And you can actually request, I believe they actually have things to send to you.
Right, or you can also download them. So what you're looking at on the screen right now would be the top 100 unreached people groups, the most populous unreached people groups, and it comes in a PDF. And you can download that, print it out, cut out cards. If you've been to Faith Camp, you've probably seen us handing out these little slips of paper saying, please pray for the unreached. And this is where we get those.
We get that information. So they have lots of resources like that to help you reach out in your own community and make other people aware of the needs that are still there, or just in your own life being able to be aware of what's happening and pray specifically for the groups that need it.
Right. So if people are out there right now thinking, okay, praying, how is that going to help? There was a missionary in the 1800s who was working in China, not Hudson Taylor, but one of his compatriots. And he saw 2 unreached villages that he wanted to go to. He could only go to one. And so he made the decision to go to one and then pray for the other village every morning. So he would get up every morning, he would face in the direction of the village, and he would pray for that village. Well, the time came when he was actually able to go to that village, and he found that the village he prayed over had way more conversions to Christianity than the one that he worked in. So this is not to say, oh, all I have to do is pray, but it just shows the power of prayer. And so if you pick an unreached people group to pray for, God will work, and there will be lives saved even if you never see them this side of heaven.
Right.
So we encourage you to take advantage of this.
Yeah. So if you honestly can't go, or you haven't been called into ministry yourself and you can't go as a missionary, doing something like this, though, prepares the field for those who are called and who can actually go.
That's right.
And that is very important.
It is.
God can do miracles in hearts, and those people may not even realize that they are in need of it. Right. But as soon as that missionary steps foot in their village, they will know, this is what I've needed
Yes.
because you've been praying for them.
That's right.
Yes, it
That's
does
right.
help.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we're just going to talk a little bit. So Joshua Project, when they set up their graphs and all their demographics and whatever, they list the unreached people groups in a certain order, and they have them kind of categorized as how reached are they or how
Right.
unreached are they.
Right.
And so we want to just talk about that for a minute
Right.
and explain exactly what is an unreached
So let's work
people
up
group.
from the bottom.
Okay.
We'll start with the green.
Okay. So the dark green represents like the most reached. Like they are pretty much good. Whoever is established there can just keep doing their work, and you're going to reach
Right.
everybody.
Right. Right.
They categorize that, though, saying that they categorize it as any percentage over 10%. If you have a Christian population in an area and it's more than 10% of the whole population, they consider that good.
Right.
That is
because there's
substantially reached.
So because there's enough bandwidth and robustness in the Christian community to be able to continue, as you said, the work forward without needing outside help.
Yeah. So they're looking at it and going, okay, the ratios are they're still big, but it's okay. We think this group can handle it. And so, not to say they don't still need prayer and work, but it's that's a good group.
Right.
And then when you look at the lime green or the light green, so that is just, I think it's called partially reached.
Yes.
I can't.
Partially reached.
I'll just turn around for a second. So partially reached. So that's anything between 2% and 10% of a population being recognizing themselves as Christian.
Right.
And that doesn't. These percentages also don't mean that these are active, in-depth, gung-ho Christians.
Right.
This is just the percentage of people recognizing themselves, calling themselves Christians.
Right.
So then you have
the
yellow, which is superficially reached, and that is going to be anything less than 2%, and you know,
and so it looks like, because she can't read the screen, so
I'm
going
sorry.
to go ahead and read it. That those who are really active are less than 2, and the professing Christians are more than 50% of the population.
Okay,
and so there's real revival that's needed among those who are even called Christian, much less the unreached.
Yeah. So a very small percentage of those actually working and trying to still spread the gospel.
Right.
And so then you have the orange, which is minimally reached. And again, it's anything under 2%. But then you also have for the active Christians, yes, evangelicals is what they call them. So they're at this point kind of excluding certain religions. But those who profess to be Christians are anything from 5 to 50%.
Right.
And then last you have the red zone, which is the complete unreached. And so your those who profess to be Christians are less than 5% of the total population.
Right. And the active are less than 2.
Yes. And the active are still less than 2.
Right. So for the majority of the unreached people groups, these are the groups that have no access to the gospel unless someone goes.
Yeah.
So they're going to be the countries that don't allow, television programming in or missionaries to come in and do conversions. You're not going to be able to do a large meeting or anything like that. These, they don't speak English.
Right.
And so an English program broadcast around the world is not going to mean anything to them. In this area, there are a lot of people who don't even have electricity, so they're not going to be able to watch a television program or anything like that. So the unreached really have major barriers around them to hearing the gospel. Yeah.
So, and the unreached, there are so many agencies we have or programs that we have going on, and we feel like, because they tell us, we're all over the world, we're everywhere. But when you really look at what we're doing, and I'm not trying to slight any group here, because they're all doing a wonderful work.
Right.
And they are reaching people.
And it takes all of us to do this.
Yes, and people are being reached. But there are still those that are not being reached because we're not focusing on translating things into their languages.
Right.
Just thinking about how many languages there are in the world, and the translations of Bibles is high, but nowhere near as, it's not even close to as many languages as there are. And then when you think about media, the programs that are being put out, I think the majority are being translated into maybe 4 languages. And yes, there might be a few more than that, but it's definitely nowhere near the number of languages that it needs to be.
Which are close to 7,000.
Yes.
We have 7,000 languages in the world.
And so there's a lot, we need to focus on.
Right. And as Veronica pointed out, this is not to provide criticism to other ministries, because they're following God and they're doing exactly what God has asked them to do. But I want to make sure that when we hear news reports, and that we understand that, if someone were to broadcast a program in Mandarin Chinese here, right?
Yeah.
I would not even think to look for it, number one, because I don't speak Mandarin.
Right.
And number two, even if I could hear it, I wouldn't understand what was going on, even if it was information I needed to save my life. And so we just want people to understand that there's more behind the statistics than perhaps we would be able to find without going to the length that we're going to share. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just a lot that needs done, and so we need to put it out there to call to other people to say, these ministries are doing everything they can, and they certainly are following God. I believe that.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But I think that there are more people who need to step up so that we can reach these languages that haven't been reached yet, and these people groups, and there's just more to be done.
So in this graph that we're just putting up here, this tells us the total number of estimated unreached people.
Right. So this is, and forgive me for turning my head for a second, I just can't see on this smaller screen, but basically it is, it's talking about how many people there are in general. So right now we're at 7.7 billion people in the world approximately, and they estimate of all unreached people groups across all countries are about 3.2 billion people that are unreached. Okay. Now, of that number, 3.2, remember we talked about that 1040 window?
Right.
3.1 billion people are just in that 1040 window. So if we continue with just what we've been doing, which for the most part excludes that area, we're not going to reach all of the people because most of them are in that 1040 window.
Right.
So the people who have not heard the name Jesus or have not been able to understand it enough to accept him, that's a lot of people. It's 3.1 billion people in the 1040 window. And, and that's, that was a staggering number to me. I didn't realize that it was,
And that is a staggering number. And we'll talk more about the staggering number in a little bit. But that's 42.5% of the population of the world. And we were talking about if someone had 5 children.
Yes.
That would be like 2 of their children would be lost.
Right.
And to look at your 3 and say, well, I've got 3. God is not looking at this 42% of people and going, well, that's okay. Look how many I've got over here.
Yeah. That's why he's still waiting on us. Because exactly, that it's a perfect point. No parent is going to be satisfied with even 1 being lost, let alone 2 or 3. And God's children, there are a lot that are missing still from his kingdom.
So we talk a lot about India.
Yes.
So we wanted to share statistics from India.
Yeah, so we're going to pinpoint a few of the countries that we've talked about on our show before. So India has a lot of people.
Yes.
India has a lot of people.
Almost 1.4 billion.
Almost 1.4 billion. And out of that population, 95%, almost 96% is still unreached.
Wow.
And there's ministry happening in India as much as we can.
Right.
And that's still the number.
Right.
Now there is kind of an unknown number statistically of how many Christians are really there, because it's hard to get that from that country.
Well, let's just say 90% then. Let's be generous and say
was it 90%?
90% are still
unreached. Yeah,
and that's still a lot.
But that's,
one thing I want to point out for our viewers is that the slide, this slide comes from JoshuaProject.net, but we also have, and this is Christianity in general.
Right.
And we do have some statistics from the General Conference Office of Archives and Statistics that showed the state of Adventism.
Right.
Which is a little bit, maybe not as high as these
so it'll
numbers.
give a little bit more information. I think the next one's going to talk about the Philippines, because I have that kind of together with our in specific Adventist information. So the Philippines is also somewhere that has had a lot of missionaries, a lot of mission work from multiple different areas, and so they're doing really well, and they only have approximately 5% that's unreached out of their population, which is amazing. And again, that's not to say that those are all Adventists, but they're Christian. They've heard the name of Jesus.
Right.
They, there's a lot of work being done there. So that's wonderful to see. So the next is just a graph. I'm going to read off kind of what these mean. But this is the bar chart.
This is from the General Conference.
Yeah,
from
so
this is
the Adventist information. Yes. So as you can see, the first bars there is the U.S., and that's basically just a comparison of our population. The dark blue is the population.
On the left.
So the dark blue bars are the population, and then the green is the Christian population. So how much of that general population is Christian? So the U.S., you can see that's almost all.
Right.
Professed, are professed Christians. They may not, be acting Christians or whatever, but they're professed Christians. So the ratio of Christian to non-Christian is about 1-to-1. I mean, it's almost all are Christians.
Right.
And in the U.S., the ratio of a Adventist to the population is 1 to 278.
Okay.
So for every Adventist, there's about 278 other people.
Okay.
So then you're looking at the Philippines, and again, there has been a lot of work there.
They're pretty equal.
They're also fairly equal there. And the ratio, just going to talk about the Adventist ratio there, is 1 to 90.
Okay.
So for every Adventist, there's 90 people.
Okay.
So, I mean, that is pretty good, and that helps us get God's message around there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So then we're going to look at India, and as you can see, you can barely see the green bar.
Right.
Because it's just kind of that sad. But so for India, the ratio, as far as we know, for Adventist per population is 1 to 1,215.
Okay.
So that still isn't an insurmountable number, but it's a very big number. And surprisingly, not the worst of the statistics of the countries that we are in.
Yeah.
So, and that we're talking about.
Right.
So just to give you an idea, there is a presence there, so it's doable, but it's still a long way ahead to make sure that these people in all of India hear about God. Okay. So we're going to look at Cambodia now. So Cambodia, not so good when it comes to having reached them. They are still about 95% unreached.
Okay.
There's some Christian presence, but there's a lot of work that needs done there.
Okay.
And I'm just going to pull up my other information here. So when we look at the bar graphs of Cambodia, this also has Laos, because the Adventist archive data that I had these grouped together. But specifically Cambodia, when we look at that, the ratio of any Christian to Cambodia is 1 to 29. But when you look at just Adventism, for every one Adventist, there are 4,690 people.
Wow.
That's a big number.
Right, and that's a small Adventist population. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you, like I was just talking about India, and you think, 1,000 people. How am I going to reach 1,000 people? Well, for every Adventist in Cambodia, they have to reach 4,500 people. So that's a big job. Yeah. They need more help.
Right.
They need more help. So Then we're going to talk about Thailand. We have a lot of things going in. We've talked about Thailand multiple times with some of our missionaries who are there. So Thailand, they have about 88% still unreached. And the percentage that are call themselves evangelical, who profess to be evangelical Christians, less than 1%.
Yeah.
So of that reached portion, which is maybe 12% that's reached, you have less than 1% that actually identifies as evangelical Christian. So not good numbers on that front.
Yeah.
And just looking at the ratios given to us from the Adventist Church, basically for every Adventist that's there, that's 4,547 people.
Wow.
That they would have to reach. So as you can see, Thailand's little green bar
is barely
I mean, you can barely see that it's even there.
Right.
It's just, sadly, it's not even really one of the hardest countries to get into, but it's still, there are difficulties. Don't get me wrong. It's not like you can just walk in.
Right.
But it's still so unreached. There's just so much need there. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
So we wanted to kind of give a real life example of these numbers, because I know when we talk numbers, some people just go, oh, no, I can't hear numbers. I don't understand. Doesn't compute. So we took time.
Yes, we actually did.
Running statistics, running numbers, because we wanted to think of a good example, help you guys understand how many people we're really talking about. So we thought, football stadium.
Yeah.
Everyone understands a football stadium. So this stadium, I closed my notes and I just realized I need those numbers.
Isn't that Rice University?
This is Rice University in Texas.
And they have a seating capacity of about 70,000.
They do. So the stadium itself seats 70,000. They recently updated it. It fits 70,000. So that's kind of an average of a lot of the stadiums in the U.S. So this is something you guys can think about. So one stadium, can hold 70,000 people. And so to reach the number, to be able to seat as many who are unreached in the world, because we were just talking about that 3.2 billion people. Yeah. So you would need 45,714 Rice stadiums.
All filled to capacity.
Filled to capacity, all seats taken. That would give you enough seating for the unreached people. And to kind of give you even more of an understanding of that means we'd have to put 914 stadiums in each of our 50 states.
Yeah, that's a lot.
No state has that many stadiums in it now.
We don't even have, how close are we
I mean, I
for
think
the
it was
whole
like,
United States?
Yeah, I don't remember. But that's an unbelievable number.
Yeah.
So just kind of wrap your head around that for, to fill all of those stadiums. And then think about the fact that, one stadium was 70,000 people, right? Some of these countries, if you had 70,000 people in there, they only have, what would that be? Maybe 15 Adventists to reach the whole stadium.
Right.
That's, when you think of it like that, think about standing in the middle of the football field, 50-yard line. You're standing there, you're looking up, there's only 15 of you grouped together. You're awful small compared to that 70,000.
Right.
It's definitely a big work that still needs done.
It does. And while we've shared these statistics with you, we don't want to leave with the thought that we should just all throw up our hands and say, this is so big, we can't get our brains around this. So there are things that we can do. And one thing that we can do is pray.
Yes.
And we can pray for the unreached people groups. We can pray for all the countries, because even in the countries that were orange or yellow, there's a lot of revival and reformation that's needed in those countries. So the first thing you can do is pray. And then while you're praying, you can pray about what God wants you to do as part of this. Because if all of us do something towards helping the unreached, we could get the job done if we're all working. So if you have an idea, please feel free to reach out to us. Hannah can put our email address down below, and you can contact us and say, the Lord has been leading me, and I feel like I need to go. So reach out and talk to us. Another thing that you can do is share resources. So we've talked about Cambodia, where the Howells are. We've had Billy Howell on here talking about the academy that they're building in Cambodia. So Hannah can drop a link down below to information about the Cambodia Academy and the Howells. We've talked about the Nortons recently, and how they are working to reach the unreached in the Central Valley of Thailand. You can partner with us there. We've talked about our Bible workers. You can check the link out down below for Bible workers as well, because they are going to people who have not heard. And if you have a group, whether that's a Sabbath school class or a book club or a sewing club or your church, any kind of group that you would like to sponsor Bible workers to go into an unentered area, please go ahead and reach out to us at the email link that Hannah put down below, because we would love to work with you. Our local church, we had a Mission Snapshot episode about our local church sponsoring 10 Bible workers in an unreached place in India. We would love to have you do that. We've also talked about our evening schools and how many people who would not otherwise be reachable are reached because their children come to our evening schools. So there are ways that you can partner with us to also reach unreached. Just whatever God is laying on your heart, we encourage you to please take steps forward and move, because we've seen these statistics, and we have a lot of our brothers and sisters around the world who can't even make a decision for Jesus because they haven't heard. So we have presented scary statistics, and we hope to be able to come back with an update at some point that shows that the statistics are not that scary. So please ask God what He would have you do. So in addition to what's been dropped down below, if you have any interest in learning more about Jesus for Asia and the other projects that we have, we invite you to go to jesusforasia.org and check out our projects and see what may resonate with you, and we would love to have your partnership on the projects. We invite you to pray. Please pray for these projects. We have projects with frontline missionaries who are doing as much as they can do, and we ask for strength and help from God and His angels to keep them moving forward. If you are watching this on YouTube, we invite you to subscribe to our channel. If you're watching this on Facebook, we invite you to like our page. That way you'll get notification when we go live, because we would love to have you come back and join us again. Well, thank you for all the work you put in doing this research in order to give us maybe a clearer picture of the work that still needs to be done in order for Matthew 24:14 to be fulfilled. So thank you, and we thank you for joining us today. This has been your Mission Snapshot.